more of the Zoom calls and stuff that he was, that Greg McCabe was doing more Zoom calls than John Berta recently. And I think that's also smart and strategic because for those that want to point to something like this, I mean, this is no longer John Berta's story. This is now Greg McCabe and NextBridge Hydrocarbons' story. And for me, I don't think that this in any way hamstrings NextBridge Hydrocarbons from doing whatever it is that they're going to do to deliver some form of resolution / reconciliation. I don't see how this could interfere with that. Is it gonna make a little bit more of an uphill battle for Congress and stuff? Yes, but it's very easy to point out that this has nothing to do with the trading halt, nothing to do with the fact that the regulatory establishment misled the investing public going into the trading halt. I also want to point out something else. I'm hearing that there are certain knuckleheads that are out there jumping for joy and tap dancing and having a great time, thinking that they're in some way, shape, or form responsible for this. Unless you hack the shit out of Metamaterials and John Berta's email accounts and sent those emails to the SEC, whatever you submitted for your whistleblower report ain't worth the buffalo shit on a nickel. And you're not going to see a penny, and none of this has to do with you. So pipe your ass down and shut your ass up. None of this is because of you. None of it. Again, everything that I'm seeing here seems to stem from internal communications that the company executives were having. And unless you had access to that, you played no role in this. None. None whatsoever. That's that. Next up, obviously, financials. I hope to see those by the end of next week. I don't know what to say. I was hoping they'd be out. They're not out. These things take long, from what I'm being told. We have a CFA in our community. Jared, and even Jared agrees, Jared Fowler agrees that this stuff takes a long ass time. CPA, I'm sorry, but he does corporate accounting. These things take a while, so I'm hoping we'll see him by the end of next week. I don't know. And Scott Traudt. Scott Traudt has a really fun way of wording things. I was having fun reading the stuff that he wrote. It's just the language there. It gets you going, doesn't it? I don't know what to make of it. To be honest with you, am I ready to go scorched earth with my brokerage right now? No. Why? Because my shares are still there, and I don't want to fuck that relationship up. But Scott Traudt is going for it, and what's interesting is the laws in Vermont, which I believe is where he is. The laws up there are a little bit different. So I'm curious to see what kind of progress he makes with that letter to Schwab. I'm not getting ready to send a scorched earth letter like that to my brokerage. You guys, everybody here obviously has the ability to make their own decisions. He might very well be onto something. Here's what I don't know. What I don't know is ultimately to what end is this plan? I loved reading the letters though. I thought they were pretty funny. It was funny. I'm gonna usually listen, something like this I could go on and talk about it for an hour and a half. I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to open up the mics, and I want everybody else to come up here and you know bounce back and forth with me on these things. What are you thinking? What do you think about what we saw today? I have not listened to Spaces extensively today, so I don't know. So if you said something, I didn't hear it, but I'd like to hear it. I'm curious to hear from right around now is where I'd like to see the microphone queue start filling up. And you lazy bastards, none of you are hitting the mic button. So I want to hear from you guys, and I want to know what you all think, and we'll snowball back and forward. Here we go. We got some mics here. Good job. Good job. First up is Mr. Lee G. Mr. or Mrs. Lee G. Hello, Lee G.
Hey, Traudt. How you doing, man?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Hey, guy. I was just listening to your space, and I do enjoy what you say and all that stuff, and I believe you're pretty much right. Um, Here's the thing. Since they brought up that lawsuit against Berta and what you call it, what I wanted to know is, do you think they kind of how can I say it, let off their guard, because once it goes into court and all that stuff, wouldn't the lawyers give each other the information of, like, the blue sheets or something like that, because they gotta share the information of what they got of each lawyers, correct?
Well, what's interesting now is John Berta will eventually, if this thing continues down the legal path, John Berta will eventually have the ability to ask, "What did you know? When did you know it?" And um, and then obviously look at what decisions were made in the fallout of what they knew and when they knew it, and how that affected the company's direction. What did they know? When did they know it? And more specifically, what did you know was happening? Um, I think that's going to be very interesting. But yeah, in discovery, both sides are allowed to ask questions. Both sides are allowed to file interrogatories, which basically, interrogates the other side for questioning, and both sides are going to have to comply. So unless there is some legal principle or protection that one side or another, tries to claim to bar themselves from having to answer any question, uh, if this thing goes to discovery, a lot of truth is going to come out.
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, I got my fingers crossed and all that stuff. And I remember, I'm not going to say his name. I did ask the other lawyer that if this ever happened, would this kind of bring the end of the whole situation if it's all brung out like that?
Well, you know, what's funny is that there was another stock that was involved in a naked shorting issue. Oh, and that was another really good tweet that was brought out today that I'm going to put in the nest. Another good point raised by our resident wizard Gandalf. Um, and the Here, I'll put the tweet in the nest. Sounds awfully familiar to another company. Uh, in my opinion, the SEC has a modus operandi of going after companies to hide the truth behind investigations and misleading allegations. That company was Overstock. And Overstock, I'm pretty sure, ended up beating that case. So yeah, another company involved in massive, in naked shorting allegations, and the SEC went after them instead of trying to solve the problem. So again, I think it's going to be interesting. But once again, I think we're at least 6 to 8 months out from discovery.
I think so too. I believe after all the how the delays are when all that stuff, but this is only the first round of the end of the score. So
Yeah, and I have to stress, I really have to stress that I'm kind of glad, like, it's about time that they came out with this because for over a year now, Congress has been saying, oh, there's an SEC investigation. There's an SEC investigation. That's why, our hands are tied. SEC investigation has nothing to do with the security known as MMTLP. Nothing. So for me, it's going to make my job easier when I'm talking to Congress.
I think so too. I think so too.
They can't hide behind that.
Uh,
They cannot hide behind it anymore. So I got a lot of hands, Lee. Are
no,
we
we're
good?
we're good, man. Hey, I enjoy listening to you. Cross my fingers. I hope everything goes good for all of us. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm gonna circle back to that. Everything going good for us or not towards the end here, but we're gonna continue right on. I believe the next hand was Mr. QN Quentin Queen, the Queen of Tainment. Hello, Queen Tainment.
Quintainment, sir. But
Oh,
thank you.
sorry.
Anyway, thank you for the mic. I'm gonna say two things here that may stir the pot a little bit. Do I have permission to say these things in your space, Mr. Drew Diligence?
You can say whatever you want. When the hell do I ever censor
Okay.
anybody?
All right. Cool. This is probably going to be a little bit.
Sorry, Q. I had to mute you because I have to censor you from what you're about to say. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Say whatever you want, bro. No, I'm just kidding. Say whatever you want.
Here we go. All right. So now, as it relates to what you mentioned earlier, how like some of the guys in the other space are like, jumping for joy and shouting like, "Yeah, we did it. We were right. Yeah." I wanted to make it known to the community that, and I am 100% certain of this, and I have the evidence to prove it, that at least one or more of those individuals in that other space have been interviewed by the SEC and are listed as a person of interest related to this investigation. Their full name has been made known to me.
Where are they listed?
They are. Well, here. Tell you what, Drew. So that you don't know I'm not bullshitting, I will send you this information privately. I don't want this getting out like who exactly specifically publicly because I think this could potentially cause some harm to myself and others. But Drew, so that you don't know that I'm not bullshitting, I will send you the information privately, and I'll tell you exactly who it is.
Wonderful.
But
I love private
yes,
information.
I will. But listen to me, Drew. Listen to me. I am. I know we've been at odds in the past, but I am 100% putting my trust in you by sending you this information. I'll do that later. But
Everybody already knows you're sending it to
yes,
me, you
yes.
goofball. I'm not going to publicize it if that's what you're
All right,
worried
cool,
about.
awesome. That's all I need to know. But yes, one of them was interviewed by the SEC and is cooperating with the SEC in this investigation. I know exactly who it is. That's the first thing. The second thing is I wanted
Okay.
to call out one individual, but not name him, if that's okay. I don't normally do this, but
You can do whatever you want. Go
I
for it.
don't want to say his name publicly, but I think people know who it is. To the individual that thinks he knows something about the SEC, you're wrong. You don't know anything about the SEC. You don't know how this affects us. The tweet you made earlier was stupid and ignorant, and you're a dumb fuck if you think that you know anything about the
So
SEC
you should
more than
Q.
me.
You should be more
Yes,
specific.
yes, yes.
Q. You
It's
should be
it's one of the
specific.
shill guys. It's one of the shill guys that no one knows who he is. He's friends with Doug Sifu, and his name starts with an O. He thinks he knows
Okay.
something about the SEC. He doesn't. What he stated in his post was completely speculation. If that,
But what did he say?
here, I'll here. Let me pull it up real quick. Give me one moment. he stated that well, I made a post and he said that my post was going to age very poorly. He says that all of this ends with John Berta and George Kalakaris and anyone who was online pumping MMAT or whatever, MMTLP, whatever. He thinks that all those, that they're all going to get prosecuted and, there's going to be disgorgement or whatever and this and that. I wanted to dispel that because he's incorrect about the information that was released back in 2022, December of 2022. He's incorrect. He's wrong. He thinks that all this naked short war nonsense was a naked short hoax scam that John and George perpetuated to try and defraud us. I want to let him know that that's not true at all.
Yeah.
That can't be proven.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with MMTLP. That's
No,
it
it can.
say.
It can be proven. It can.
No. No. Listen to me.
I'll tell you. It
You
can.
can't.
Listen, if he agrees with that so much, then he should advocate for a share audit, a broker by broker audit of the liability
Right.
that they have and the amount of shares that they actually have on hand to deliver. If he believes that that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
But specifically relating to John Berta and George coming up with some sort of scheme to get people to buy and gas up the stock price and all that. None of that can actually be proven.
Let's assume for the sake of argument. Okay, so companies taking advantage of their stock price running, that's nothing new. Like I said, GameStop just did it. GameStop just did it. And that's what companies do. Their stock price runs, and they throw up an offering. It happens all the time. I can't. So there used to be a ticker symbol called it was Derek Raymond Yellow Sam. And if you look up the history of that stock, they had this massive run back in like 2016. Massive run. And they had multiple offerings during that run. Multiple offerings during that run. So, I mean, this is what companies do. Now, the question really is, did George and John defraud the public by creating a circumstance which led to the stock running? Did they fraudulently mislead or manipulate? It looks to me like they took all of the actions that they were entitled to take as a company that was going through a merger, and it looks like the SEC gave tacit approval of their plan with the Series A preferred share. And if it so happens that in the orchestration of the Series A preferred dividend, that they considered that would cause the price of the stock to run because of the effect that it would have on shorts that were not able to deliver the dividend. That's a byproduct of a free market.
Right. So technically, it can't actually be proven if you were to make the argument that yes, they both did or said something that actually made people buy in, and then you had the stock price running. That can't actually be proven in court. I mean, unless you can pull out some sort of tweet that says, "Hey guys, it's me, John Berta, and this is my friend George. Buy MMAT,
Well,
buy MMTLP."
If misstatements or if public statements were made through press releases or things of that like, or outlets of public information, if statements were made that should not have been made, then obviously John and George are going to have to answer for it. Anybody who committed wrongdoing is going to be held accountable. My primary focus is, how does this affect MMTLP? How does this affect the situation where we are right now? I live in the now.
I can tell you how it affects our situation.
I don't think it does.
Well, here's the thing. Technically, you can get, I would say, partial discovery from TRCH shorts before the merger of June in 2021, because that's going to get brought up in court, no doubt, definitely. I have 100% faith that George and John will use that information, and the SEC has to address that information. So that essentially will get partial discovery, and it may, if it's made public, it could give us a clue as to what that true share count might actually be close to. So I think it helps us in some weird way.
Okay, I did not censor Q. I just want to make that clear. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, my connection is bad here, but that information will have to be addressed by the SEC no matter what in court. It may not be made public per se, but I think it will ruffle some feathers a little bit, and I think that if it is made public, it will provide us a clue as to what we're looking for with MMTLP.
All right. Thank you, Q. I appreciate it. I have a mic request that I want to grant. Oop, I did not drop you, Elf. Your connection is bad. Uh-oh. Is everybody dropping? Is my connection bad? Oh, shit. Okay. Next up, we're going to go to Tractor Sam. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Andrew. Long time no speak. Hey, so...
Yeah, where the fuck have you been?
I've just been fighting the Soups crew. Not really, but I've been dealing with them and I was trying to bridge, make amends between the different sides. Obviously, I failed.
Can I stop
and
you
I'm being
there?
attacked now.
Hold on. Let me stop. Let me stop you there. Okay. Okay.
I'm a peacemaker.
We got. Hold on. We got one group that is spending time and money and going to great expense and personal sacrifices to educate the members of Congress on our situation. Then immediately after them, you've got another group that's going to those same offices and lying to them, calling us a bunch of stock pumpers, saying that we are all manipulators of the truth. And you want to come here and think that you're gonna bridge some gap between the two sides? Do me a favor, fly your ass to the Middle East and make peace between Israel and Palestine, because you have more of a fucking likelihood of that happening than you bridging this gap. They are literally sabotaging the work that we are doing, and you think you think they're gonna want to come and be peaceful with us? Come on, dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're probably right, but I think you made some very good uh, uh, and valid points about this really not having a whole lot of bearing on, if any, at all, on MMTLP. And, and like you said, this does not address. This only addresses one side of the argument, and even assuming that everything in that complaint is 100% accurate, that doesn't that doesn't uh, account for or give reason for for the shorts to continue to short the shit out of it, naked shorting, the trade station imbalance, none of that. All of this, as far as I'm concerned, is a shiny object that's been thrown out in our way. Interestingly, one day after Junk Space with Wes Christian, I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think all of this is done to knock us off of our momentum, and that's simple as that.
It's as simple as that. Costas sent a DM saying, I dropped down, but my point is that this is a distraction. It's an SEC versus individuals case. MMTLP, Nextbridge Hydrocarbons, is not named, and Meta paid a fine. What is the expected outcome? A settlement? The SEC opened them up for discovery if it moves forward. I agree, Costas. And I appreciate your comment, Sam. And yeah, we've got a lot of hands that I want to get to everyone. So we're going to move right along and we're going to go to Captain Insano.
Yeah, real quick. I thought I heard earlier they were saying Berta and Pelicaris were talking that this is going to be a squeeze. Well, I mentioned earlier in the space, Jeff Mandel went on TV saying that this is going to be one of the most exciting times in the markets, and simple mind like mine, I'm in. I just kind of wondering.
Yeah, he talked about MMTLP. He specifically mentioned that there was violent swings in price action on MMTLP, and he stated that he expected that the trading leading into the close of the trading on that Monday, December 12th, he expected it to continue to be. He expected volatility, and they even speculated that there would be more volume that they had seen in that ticker to that point. And there was a shitload of volume on the day he was talking and on the days leading up to the day he was talking.
Yep, lock his
So
ass up.
you make a very good point. You make a very good point. You make a very good point. I appreciate
As
that.
far as everything goes, MMTLP, that's nothing to do with Berta or Pelicaris. Who, what's the share count? They didn't, Pelicaris nor Berta sold us counterfeit shares. So what's the fucking share count? Sorry.
I appreciate that, and I agree. Like I said, Berta, Palicaris, Metamaterials, that is completely divorced from Nextbridge Hydrocarbons, Greg McCabe. So we'll have to see how this shakes out moving forward. Mr. Jared, how are you?
Well, sir, how are you doing?
I feel great. I feel good, man. I'm relieved that this thing is finally out now, and we know exactly what the SEC is alleging. And I mean, I've been saying it the whole time. I don't think this Wells notice has anything to do with MMTLP. And lo and behold, here it is. We have our definitive answer. It has nothing to do with
And I
MMTLP.
100%
How are
agree.
you?
I 100% agree with you. I'm doing well. Shift a little gears, just because you have the other two things in the title, financials and Traudt. So let's talk financials just briefly. It does take a while for audits to be completed, especially ones where you're preparing for an audit team at the beginning of the year and then you fire the firm for some apparent reason, and then you have to wait for a new audit team to be assigned to you. And since NextBridge has no deadline to have their 10K or 10Qs filed in a timely manner, they get put to the back of the line for other companies that need to be filed timely. So you have that going on, and then you got to wait for the right audit team to become available. You have to wait and see how long the engagement's going to be, who's on staff, prepare that, figure out what testing you're going to have to test, and a lot of other things go into play. So by the time you're looking at that, you might be looking at May, June to even start. And it could be we don't know how long the engagement's going to be, and you're probably looking at two years, looking at 22 and 23, and Q1 and Q2 of 2024. So I could see this going like they're preparing the audit now for 22 and 23. I could see that, and then I could see the 10 Qs for both Q1 and Q2 not taking that long at all, because I don't see that many transactions that they would really need to test for a quarterlies, because a quarterly is not as intense as an annual. So what I think you're probably looking at is financials coming out maybe the week after July 4th would be my best guess, like the week of July what is that? The 4th is a Thursday, so 5th, 6th, 7th, like that week of July 8th, or maybe the week after, is where I would be looking hard pressed as to when those would come out. So that's my best guess. And then another thing I want you to touch on, I don't know if you have, is Traudt with which is a quote unquote scorched earth comment. You mentioned our good old friend statute of limitations. I understand what you're talking about, but now that we're on a recorded space, I want
Oh,
you
Jesus.
to just briefly touch on why you believe the statute of limitations mean absolutely nothing in what we're preparing for, and why you think that December 8th, 2024 date is not the correct ending date for statute of limitations.
Okay. So I brought this up the other day. I purposefully tweeted this because when you say something in a space, it's not always heard. So I sat there and I typed out a long ass tweet about the statute of limitations and all that stuff. And I'm gonna put the tweet in the nest, and I'm gonna expound upon it a little bit. Um, so obviously, like I said in the tweet, when you're dealing with cases of fraud and misconduct, the statute of limitations usually will set a period, that maximum period of time that you can wait before suing. But the statute of limitations have to be assessed on a case by case basis, and they are assessed and interpreted a number of different ways, and there are different ways, as Rosa has mentioned, that you can toll or pause the statute of limitations. Rosa didn't go into much detail about it, but it does work a few different ways, and I listed 3 ways out of probably at least,
The time
I want to
is
say, a half a
10
dozen to a
o'clock
dozen
p.m.
that you could apply tolling the statute of limitations to us. There's the continuing violation doctrine, which is, it's a legal principle. It's not. It's a generally accepted practice that the statute of limitations period resets with each new act of misconduct. So the clock actually starts from the last known act of fraud, not the first. So December 9th, 2022 is not their last act of fraud, especially if you take into consideration the communications that FINRA has had with Congress and the communications that the brokerages have had with their clients, and some of the shenanigans that they've pulled, namely when trying to, in terms of canceling the execution of share transfers to AST, which I understand as recently as last week, Fidelity was giving people shit about transferring and coming up with all kinds of reasons why you can't do it right now. So that's one. Number 2 is the discovery rule. So this rule says that the statute begins when the plaintiff discovers the scope of the fraud. As much as we know, and I wrote this, as much as we know that the regulatory establishment had a hand in all of this, we've not yet discovered the smoking gun that would conclusively tie it to the situation here. I'm going to give you guys an example. There was a case made very, very famous by the Aaron Brockovich movie. Okay? And the Aaron Brockovich movie, how did they win that case? How did Aaron Brockovich win that big case against PG&E? They found a letter that was years old, years and years old, that stated that PG&E knew that their wells were contaminating the groundwater and knew that the hexavalent chromium that was present, that was contaminating the water, was harmful to the health of the residents of the area. That memo was years and years old. The statute of limitations does not start from the day that letter was fucking written. The statute of limitations would have begun on all claims related to that letter, would have begun on the date that that letter was discovered. So the discovery rule means that you have that you can toll the statute of limitations to begin, the period to begin when the plaintiff discovers that the fraud took place. Then there is concealment. If a person or entity committing fraud takes steps to hide or obfuscate their role in conspiracy to commit that fraud, the statute of limitations can be paused. So if there is a big conspiracy to conceal this fraud, and that is discovered, and that conspiracy is continued on a daily basis, the statute of limitations does not start until the fraud and its scope is fully discovered. I said this in the tweet. I said I dare anyone. Now I double dare anyone to do some research and tell me that I'm wrong. And I'm going to say this. Okay? And I said this in the tweet, but I'm going to say it now. If you want to file a suit, I'm not an attorney, but I think you still have plenty of time. If you want to file a suit tomorrow, for the love of God, go fucking file it. Go hire Mark Basile. I don't care. I'm not trying to stop anyone from filing a lawsuit. If that's what you want to do, go do it. I'm going to say it for the millionth time. I don't want no class action lawsuit against any of the entities involved to resolve this imbalance. But do you really believe that if the true scope of this imbalance was discovered, for example, if somehow in John Berta's discovery, the true scope of the imbalance is discovered, the statute of limitations begins from the time he has that smoking gun in his hands and the public is made aware of it. That's how this works. But if you want to go and you want to file a lawsuit, class action or otherwise, if you believe your rights have been violated, go consult with a fucking attorney, for the love of God. Call me. I will personally give you Mark Basile's phone number. No one is trying to dissuade anyone from filing lawsuits. I'm going to echo the sentiments of John Berta. John Berta has said he doesn't think we're there yet. He doesn't think we need that yet. That is a last resort. And he doesn't think we're there yet. In reality, what I think is really happening, and I said this in the tweet too, is there's a lawyer sending his minions to try to hustle up a class action to decide how this imbalance should be resolved and how much you should get paid for your shares. I think they see the same writing on the wall that I see. I think they see that NextBridge is going to resolve this. I think it scares the shit out of them because their payday goes goodbye. I also think if this class action were to happen, that those minions would be paid a hefty bonus for using their influence to force this idea on you. Again, for those of you standing in the back here under burners or anonymous accounts, file a lawsuit if you want to, but only if you want to. Not because some clown and his circus animals fear-mongered you into it. If you believe that your rights have been violated, you should defend your rights. Period. End of story. Jared, did I expand enough on the statute of limitations to your satisfaction?
Well done, sir. I think you did that for everyone.
Okay, good. Happy to
Yes.
hear. I appreciate your feedback on the financials. As I said about the whole Scott Traudt thing, uh, I just don't know where he's going with this, but it's fun to watch. And I'm not ready to jump in that pool just yet because, again, I think Nextbridge is inches away from resolving this. I'm just going to continue doing what I can do to support them, and that's put pressure on the regulatory establishment by putting pressure on Congress and, having as many inquiries and eyes put on this thing as possible. So that's what I'm doing. And that's that. Next up, hello, Joe.
Hi, Andrew.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. How are you doing?
It's been a very busy day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question about the SEC PR that brought the news to us today. There's a sentence in it that I'd like for you to just talk about for a minute or two, and I'm going to read it. It's at the end. And the PR states a separate commission investigation regarding subsequent events related to metamaterials, MMTLP, remains ongoing. Is this something that is new information? Is this something that is some sort of concern regarding like timelines moving forward with MMTLP?
So that's actually interesting that you're drawing attention to that. I don't know what I don't know what to make of that sentence. But I do know that the next sentence, if you're an individual with information related to this investigation, and you wish to contact the SEC, submit a tip at sec.gov. I recommend that we all do that. If you are a person that has been unable to get your shares transferred over, if you are a person that has been given the runaround from your broker, or especially if you're a trade station client, I would recommend that you reach out to their tip line. Submit a tip at sec.gov. A separate commission investigation regarding subsequent events related to MMTLP remains ongoing. Huh. Interesting. That's interesting. I gotta say, it feels like part of me feels like, yeah, I'm sure they're having an investigation into it, but part of me feels like they're using that. I think that line is in there specifically for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
Well, and it certainly does help to make it harder for us to look at it and go, well, this has nothing to do with us, because look, there's the ticker right there. And if you're not really understanding the situation and reading into it, it's hard to know how to weigh that out.
Well, no, okay. So the complaint has nothing to do with MMTLP. The charges that they brought today have nothing to do with MMTLP. But they're saying that there is a separate investigation related to MMTLP. So, not this. Now, are they going to charge Polycaris and Berta and whoever else all over again with stuff like this? It's possible. I don't know. I honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But here's the funny thing: Nextbridge Hydrocarbons is also not MMTLP. It's not. It's completely divorced from MMTLP, Metamaterials Torchlight Preferred. not NextBridge Hydrocarbons. So the assets were spun out into NextBridge. If you owned a share of MMTLP, you were due a 1-for-1 exchange. If that exchange has failed on a massive level, that's a completely different issue. And I hope in the course of their investigation, you would think that if the SEC is having an investigation regarding the MMTLP security, you would think that some form of share count would have to be a part of that investigation, wouldn't it?
Depends on what they're investigating.
That's a fair point. Yeah. What do you think it means, Joe?
I don't know. I think that the SEC in PRs and in statements is very specific with their language to be communicating all sorts of things on all sorts of levels, and I tend to assume that this sentence is supposed to have multi-purposes.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you for bringing it up.
And I have one more question.
Go ahead.
So you were talking about how you have ideas of NextBridge moving things forward, and you think that people outside of NextBridge can see the writing on the wall, and that NextBridge is inches away from resolving this, which leads me to think that the SEC would be, seeing the writing on the wall. Do you think that the timing of bringing this information forward, of telling everyone about the complaints, has any indication that the SEC is going to be fighting tooth and nail to continue to do whatever they can to be delaying choices NextBridge will be trying to make?
I think they've already done that.
You think they've already done everything they can and there's not
I
much
don't
more?
think they've done. No, I don't think they've done necessarily done everything they can, but I certainly think that the SEC has stood in the way of NextBridge effectuating certain items that would be conducive to a resolution, namely the S1.
Mhm.
I do think they have, but I think that ever since McCabe became CEO, he's been a lot more aggressive about going back and forth with this S1. And it seems to me that every time the SEC had some comment or another, the S1s were being amended. And if there are no longer amendments coming out, that would lead me to believe that the only thing standing in their way is getting their financials updated. And because their financials have to be updated if they're going to do that. So we'll see what else they try to throw at them once the financials are updated.
So you think they're beyond the amendment process? Or they could be?
I would imagine so. Otherwise, so okay, so when you're going through a process like this, there's usually a list of comments. And it seems that, every time NextBridge addressed those comments, the SEC had more comments, and NextBridge would then amend the S1 to address that. And we all noticed little changes of verbiage on the S1. There's the before and after. There's like a website that'll tell you what changes have been made to text, and we've seen, bits and pieces added and taken away from the S1 filings. I'm thinking that list of comments has been cleared out, and the final piece to it was the financials. But that's generally how the process works.
Okay.
It's kind of like a checklist. Now, I think NextBridge does have a plan. I think Greg McCabe does have a plan. And I think we will all learn what that plan is shortly after the S1 is made effective. That's what I think. Could be wrong. Could be wrong, but that's what I think. We good?
Yep, we're good. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. I'm gonna go to the Bird Lady.
Hey, it's me again. Thanks for hosting. I want to just point out it's currently where I am, 9:17. This is going on for an hour. And Charles Gasparito's like, I got a random message said, Bird Lady, meet me behind the swing set at this time. And here at the swing set, and he's not here. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, Charles Gasparino said that he would show up if the Bird Lady was here. And you see, the cool thing about Julie, about the Bird Lady, is that she doesn't hide. You know, she owns everything that she's said in the past, and she's willing to come in here and stand here and say her piece. You know, whether you agree with whatever she's said in the past or you disagree, she is willing to, you know, she's willing to stand here and have the conversation. That's a lot more than I can say about Charles Gasparino. I thought if I sent him a musical invitation that I thought he could identify with, that maybe that would break the ice and he would show up. Turned out that didn't work.
I thought your musical invitation was like cleverly written. Like it was like, oh, you got some rhymes going. It was like it good verbiage. I liked it. I liked your musical invitation. Please do more.
Thank you, and I'll consider that moving forward. But you can hang out here if you want to add anything to the conversation, or if if Mr. Gasparino decides to grace us with his presence. I don't think he's coming, but we'll see. Thank you for being here, though, Bird Lady. It's good to hear from you. I'm going to go to Pinstripe.
Good evening, fine sir. So
What's up, bro?
I was just thinking, man, like this isn't the first SEC filing that's come out with them, making accusations. If you remember back to the beginning, they charged a bunch of social media influencers in one of their forms. So I think you're right, and this is a delay tactic.
How did that case go, by the way?
Completely agree with you. Now, I do think it's a delay tactic because I think next bridge is close, like you said. But let me ask you this question. Does this not look to you and to obviously lawyers as if this is not blatant retaliation for everything next bridge is doing to try to resolve the situation? Just the timing of it. Think about the timing of it.
I think that we have caused a major headache for the SEC. I think that we have been a big pain in Gary Gensler's ass. I think that we've been a pain in the ass to some of the other commissioners at the SEC. And I think that this is, listen, I think it is exactly what John Berta said it was going to be. The second you start asking questions about the regulatory process, that is when the regulators come down on you. And I think that's what we're seeing.
So sums up what I just said is retaliation.
Yeah. But again, like, they're gonna have to prove these allegations. Should Berta or Palikaris not make some kind of deal with them, they're gonna have to prove these allegations, and in the process open themselves up to discovery. I read John Berta's tweets today. He don't look scared. He don't look scared. He does not look
I feel like
scared.
this is an effort to basically break them financially, right? So if you're going against the government never runs out of money. And it's almost the exact same thing of what they're basically doing in Exbridge, right? Like, let's just friggin' drag this out as long as possible, and they'll go bankrupt before we do.
I think again, I don't think that I don't think that Nextbridge is going to be. I don't think Nextbridge is affected by this at all, and it, I don't think that. I think that John Berta would sell oranges on the side of the fucking road if he needed to raise money to fight this, because that's how pissed off he is. Uh, I don't see him cowering away from this situation. I don't see him not not going full force. He said this today. This is not the end. Actually, it's just the beginning.
How much do you think that they get out of discovery? Are we looking at emails back and forth between all the regulators? Is that something that will be discoverable? Is that destroyable? Can they have destroyed that already?
What they knew, when they knew it, and what decisions were made in light of what they knew and when they knew it. I think all of that is going to be fair game in discovery. But I want to say again, I think the discovery process is at least 6 to 8 months out. Like this is not going to be like the Khorasani case with Mark Basile. That was all done relatively quickly. I don't see this unfolding in that manner at all. And um, I also think that there's going to be um, some pretrial motions made uh, before we even go near the discovery process.
All right. Thank you, sir. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm 2 inches taller than Charlie Brown, which is 5 inches taller than Charlie Gasparino. Next
Only
hand.
when you wear the Marco Rubio shoes.
There you go. Next hand was Sway. How am I keeping track of all this shit? Hello, Sway.
Hi, Drew. Great space.
Long time, my
I
friend.
know. Been busy.
You miss me very
I
much.
have.
I miss you.
It's
What's going on?
So I had two things. The first one is is my secondary thing. So the act of discovery itself, like including FOIA requests that might reveal fraud, knowledge of a fraud and fraud occurring between SEC and FINRA, that could reset, that could start the statute, at the point at which we finally get that information, if the SEC has been denying those requests. Is that true? I'm trying to understand if that would reset it.
Again, when you discover the fraud, or when they say that you reasonably should have been able to discover the fraud to the point where you discover material information that would give way for claims to arise from your discovery.
Yeah.
That is one way to toll the statute of limitations.
I mean, there's a lot of information that hasn't been released that we've been trying to get.
Yeah.
So that's still in the future.
Yep. Like tomorrow, if magically it falls out of the sky, the exact number of shares that's out there and who the identities are of these institutions that have committed these abuses, if magically that all falls into our lap tomorrow, if it falls into our lap a year from now, we're not barred by the statute of limitations.
Yeah. So my second thing, and I don't know why this is been hard for me, but I'm trying to put together like a really great scenario for us with regards to the state AGs and having them become involved, and on a state by state basis, and then working together, and then how they would be, we can get our reps like working with them and working with us to move things forward, and how that ends up culminating in a share count. And I'm having trouble seeing that path, like a really good scenario there. And I didn't know if you or somebody could sort of walk through that quickly, to help me figure out what my role is, a little bit better.
So I haven't really chimed in much on this push for attorney generals. And I think my answer may surprise some people, but believe it or not, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Anything that gets extra eyes on the situation. The only concern that I have is that moving through Congress is likely to help us yield some kind of result that will aid Nextbridge in achieving a reconciliation. My concern is, Busy mentioned this the other day. Nobody is standing here saying stop focusing our energy on Congress, focus all of our energy on the attorney generals. Instead, it's just another form of ammunition for our repertoire. And I have to echo that. Like, we can't lose sight of Congress solely to focus on the attorney generals. And similarly, me personally, I don't know about how everyone else feels, but I want reconciliation before I want incarceration. I want reconciliation before I want to see anybody get dragged off in fucking handcuffs. Do I want to see someone dragged off in fucking handcuffs? Yes, but only after this community has been made whole to their satisfaction. So that's my perspective on the AG thing. I think that in tandem, I think that the two actions of attorney generals and Congress at the same time can actually work to complement one another, especially if you make a breakthrough with your attorney general's office and you have an existing line to your congressional representative. I think bringing the two together could be extremely helpful. But then that gets into complications like, well, I suppose it wouldn't. But then venue becomes a question. Okay, like, what's the proper venue for people to be placed under oath and discuss the events that transpired? Is it more appropriate for that to be done in a judicial setting with the attorney generals, or is it more proper for that to be done in a legislative setting with a panel of congressional representatives? For me, the answer to that question is I would rather see that happen in front of our congressional representatives, because that's more likely to create the pressure that we would then need to be able to support Nextbridge in facilitating a reconciliation. Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, yes, it does. I mean, I guess like having, our state reps work with the AG. In my mind, I'm what I thought is that would help us with our individual broker
Yeah, I think so.
complaints in terms of the overage with our individual broker, in order to get the value.
I think being able to demonstrate to your representatives that your attorney generals are looking into this matter, and vice versa, for that matter. If you're able to demonstrate to your attorney general that your representatives have been an advocate for you, I think they are mutually beneficial.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Drew.
Okay. Thank you. That's a Lethal Weapon reference for those of you that don't know. Next up, I think I'm going to go to Liquid. What's up, Liquid?
Yo, brother. What's up, man? I hope you are not boiling to death in LA. It's nice and roasty down here in SD.
It's toasty. I was down there like a week ago.
I wish I would have met up with you. Let me know when you're coming down here. Hey,
Will do.
real quick, I'll try to be not long-winded. I actually took today, and instead of just mouthing off and blaring like I do, I wanted to listen today.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hands after you.
Seven hands. I'm moving. Yo. So I don't know. To me, starting off the day and seeing yet another new low for the SEC is par for the course. I think all this stuff that happened today with the SEC is total bullshit. I think this is OSTK Part 2. If anybody doesn't know about that, please look up what happened with OSTK. This is the same playbook as before, going after the CEOs, alleging that they were attempting a squeeze. To me, there's no coincidences to have this, pop up today, especially in light of apparently that your buddy, Drew, Ari Rubenstein, has surfaced and popped his head up out of whatever.
It's my cousin. Get it right.
Whatever bunker he's been hiding in. Apparently, he's going to show up and speak at an event here. I'm sorry, I can't be more specific. It's there if you guys dig in and look at when he's going to speak. But to me, there's no coincidences. And now that there's yet another investigation, I can see the minute a mic goes in front of Ari's mouth and he's asked about, MMTLP, he's going to say, I can't speak about that because of an investigation. What I do find that raises my eyebrows here, when we found out that TradeStation had an overage, Drew, everything started to seem like to me, that's when we started to really get some momentum. And I just find it interesting now that, more and more stuff is popping up, especially with the SEC, commenting and making moves or making direct moves, against Meta and the CEOs. I haven't been able to talk to you about it, but now that it's been revealed that there's massive overages in Schwab, I just find it really interesting that the distractions are at an all-time level here. And I feel like Schwab is getting let off the hook. And I was wondering, Drew, if you could talk about, now that we're starting to see that Schwab has overages, how important that is.
How are we starting to see that, though?
Well, that was just stuff I started seeing last week, where there were overages, I believe, through their merger. I think they merged with TD Ameritrade. So I can do my homework and try to send you stuff like that. But I started to see last week that, we're now overages are appearing in Schwab. And I think Schwab is, one of the biggest brokers in the country. Go ahead.
I'm curious to know the methodology behind that statement and how one was led to conclusively come to that. Did Schwab make a statement that I missed that was similar in nature to what TradeStation said?
Yeah, let me see what I can find to get back to you on that. I should have my ducks more lined up on that if I'm going to make that statement, but I don't at the moment. I'm just kind of more referring to the fact that I don't believe there's any coincidences at all. The second that Schwab is starting to get exposure, all of a sudden, all of our heads are turning in a different direction. But the last thing I wanted to ask you about too, Drew, and Jarrell stole my thunder like she always does, her and that cat of hers. Do you think that today's information and the yet another investigation is going to impede the release of NextBridge's S1? And I know you talked about that before, but I just was wondering what you thought about that. And I'll go, man. Thanks for everything. And thank all you guys for all the fighting you do. Thank
Wait,
you.
what was the substance of that last question?
Do you think that in light of the newest investigation of
No.
Alberta and Palikaris is going to be used as an excuse to delay the S1 for Nextbridge?
No.
Okay. Thank you, brother.
No. Because everything that they're alleging. Everything that they're alleging has taken place already. You can't charge someone. You can't. I don't know how to explain this, but you can't charge someone unless you need to have the intent, plus you need to have the guilty act. It's called mens rea. This is more on the criminal side, but I'm going to apply the criminal standard to this civil proceeding, because in principle both rings true. You have to be able to prove what's known as mens rea. That's the guilty act plus the intent. Everything that the SEC is alleging has taken place. It's not. They're not alleging something that is supposed to take place. So I don't see how that could interfere with Nextbridge, because Nextbridge is spun out, and everything that they're alleging with Berta and Palikaris, all of their allegations seemingly stem from events that took place in the middle of 2021. So I don't think it has anything to do with the S1. Who did I say was next? Stock D Dub? I think D Dub, and then Stock Vader. D Dub.
Hey Drew, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How about yourself, sir?
I'm surviving. I just want to go back to Gerald's comment about the last paragraph. And it sounded like you were insinuating, you said that that paragraph is for Congress. Do you think?
I think Jorel probably is right. I think that last sentence serves multiple purposes.
Okay. Because I believe that is the reason why Gary Gensler has not responded to Congress, and he's using that as a way to stall Congress's investigation or inquiries into MMTLP. And yeah, I'm interested to hear what Congress's what they're going to be saying now, but because of this has come out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So the conduct that the SEC is alleging took place here, all of the stuff that they're making allegations to, basically are pertinent to two CEOs of a company. I'm curious to know if. So it says that a separate investigation regarding subsequent events related to MMTLP remains ongoing. I'm curious to know. But are they thinking about? I Maybe it has to do with social media and social, and what many call social media, quote unquote, stock pumping. Obviously, there were a lot of personalities talking about this. I don't know what the hell that means. I really don't know. I don't know what facet of this the SEC is investigating. But I don't. I also don't know in what capacity you could charge someone like John Berta, who was no longer a CEO of the company, that's a head scratcher for me. I got to think about that for a little while to wrap my head around it a little bit more. That's a very vague and non-specific sentence. And I think it is intended to be broad and generalized. Huh.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
yeah, I agree. I think it's a general statement just to say that there's an investigation going on. I have no comment. That's it.
Yeah. Well, could be right. Thank you, D-Dub. I appreciate that. Stock Vader. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Drew. How's it going, buddy?
Everything's slicker than the snot on a doorknob. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Well, just quickly, I wanted to kind of go back to the coincidences that are happening. Coincidentally enough, we are about 5 days away from the end of the quarter, I believe. And I also believe that NextBridge is the entity that's ultimately going to decide our fate and bring this to a close. So coincidentally enough, the SEC drops this today, getting close to the end. We all feel there's a change in the air, that things are happening. They drop this. It just reeks of the similarities that Liquid 88 brought up with Patrick Byrne and Overstock. And also coincidentally enough, you notice people like Charles Gasparino jumping back into the play today. I believe
That's to be expected. Bloomberg put out something also.
exactly. That's what I was going to say. Bloomberg puts out an article. Brandon Kokedin crawls out of his hole and makes an appearance. And then a guy from the Soups crew who, how do I say this, likes to show his partner maybe too much affection, maybe a little bit too much aggressive affection.
Stop.
He crawls
Stop
out of his
that.
hole.
No. We're not going to do that
Well,
here.
okay, we're not going to do that, but he thought this was important and exciting enough to come out and have his little say again. So
Yeah.
I guess this is all kind of leading up to my question. Someone else brought up the whole retaliatory play. I tend to believe that the whole S1, it has been a retaliatory play from day one. They put that in, I think, January of 23. We are still awaiting that for it to come out. So my question is, if there has been amendments, do they have to be public? Because to the best of my knowledge, that S1 came out and then we have heard nothing.
The S1 amendments have to be filed, and that would become public information.
So,
like every time NextBridge filed an S1 amendment, it was on their Edgar page. So, for example, I have notifications turned on. So whenever anything goes on to their Edgar listing, I get an email saying there is a new something or other, and if they file an S1A, I will get a notification of that. It will be public. Yes.
Okay, well, that's all I got. I got to drop down anyway. So within,
Yeah.
so
And
what is it,
I want
17 months, there has been no amendments. That seemed coincidental? Or
What do you mean? What do you mean there has been no amendments?
well, what has happened since the S1 was initially put out in January of 23?
Well, there were amendments filed.
Okay, well that's my question. I did not realize that. So
Yeah. They filed I think 2 or 3 amendments going back, and then after I think it was like January, they stopped. All of a sudden, there was no more amendments coming out, which, like I said, leads me to believe that they cleared through all of the comments that the SEC made, and the only thing remaining was the financials, is my guess. But there were amendments made to the S1 that they filed. I want to listen. I want to touch on this, and I think it's important. It's not fair and it's not right to speculate or proliferate somebody's personal life. I understand, there's a lot of people in the in the Raman camp that are celebrating today and coming out and all this stuff. Listen, first of all, I'm going to say this again. This complaint largely stems from communications between John Berta and George Polakaris and their respective, the CEOs and their respective boards. Unless somebody hacked all of those emails and gave them over, the way it works is if you submit something that is used as evidence which leads to a successful SEC enforcement action, you receive a reward. I don't see how anybody is going to be receiving a reward from what was submitted today. If you say, hey, I think this, and this is happening, that's not enough. So, be that as it may, I don't see the need, and I don't think it's right that guy's personal life with his wife and with his family, that's his business.
Drew, I get
And
exactly
I
what
don't.
you're about to say here, and I do apologize for it. And I made
No, it's
I
all
made this
good. It's all.
comment, I
I'm
think,
just.
last night. I have seen the best in people, and I have seen the worst in people. And this has brought out the worst in me, and it's brought out the best in me. The only reason I bring it up is because I've heard these people berate, belittle, make fun of people in this community that I care about. So I have a guilty pleasure of going in
Yeah,
there and listening to all the comments about Marduk and about you and about Torchlight.
I
So
know.
I want to,
I
you
know.
know what, if they're going to take shots at us, I'm going to take shots at them. So
And you know how I take shots at them. To be honest with you, I, I mean, for the most part, listen, I'm not perfect, but for the most part, is I'll just destroy your entire argument point by point. I don't have to draw any attention to the fact that you may or may not be a piece of shit in life. I can just draw attention to the fact that your argument is a piece of shit, and that's and that's all there is to it. Listen, today, like they may feel like they got a victory. I don't look at it that way. These Wells notices, first of all, they were very, very near the deadline. They would have had to file another extension. They got an extension on the first on the original Wells notices. They had one extension already. They would have had to get another one. Um, I realize that people on the quote unquote other side are going to be celebrating and jumping for joy and saying hooray, we got them. Uh, okay, at the end of the day, it does not change the fact that we're here 18 months in, and they're still coming up with every cockamamie reason why they don't want to do a fucking broker by broker audit of the shares here. Um, and to me, like, there's nothing that you can say that is going to justify that. To me, there is nothing that you're going to say that justifies the actions of FINRA leading up to December 9th. Nothing that you're going to say that justifies the actions of the brokerages leading up to December 9th. Nothing that you're going to say that's going to justify the actions of the vice president of the market, the market operator, Jeff Mendel, going out on a broadcast on December 7th, saying what he said. Nothing that you are going to say is going to justify what TradeStation has stated. And if indeed some information has come out that has led to what I'm hearing now is a massive imbalance at Schwab, nothing is going to justify that. So I personally, I used to give a lot of air to these people. I used to go into the soup spaces and debates and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you can't. If you take someone outside and show them the sky and you show them the sky is blue and they're still giving you 176 reasons why the sky is green, it's a fucking lost cause. It's been 18 months. We're going to disagree, and that's okay. I don't wish anyone harm. I don't wish anyone ill. I think some of them, I think some of them, I think it's very ironic that they say that we all don't have lives, yet they spend their time talking about us all the time. I think that's ironic. But for me, that's where it starts and ends. I'm just not giving them air anymore. And I realize what they do. It doesn't mean I have to do the same thing, and I'm not doing it anymore. So, with that, I'm moving on from this topic, and I'm going to go back to Pinstripe.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting here kind of looking over Curtis's response to the FAQ, and one of the things that just stood out to me, Drew, was the letter or an email, I guess, from TD Ameritrade to a customer, and we've all heard this sentence before, but I'm going to read it out loud anyway. New closing sell orders of MMTLP should be routed normally, but there may be liquidity issues on 12/9 and 12/12. So, Drew, if it was going to be position close only on 12/9 and 12/12, other than a share imbalance, what would cause massive liquidity issues? And does that statement make TD Ameritrade basically putting themselves out there as they knew that there was an imbalance?
So, there's two ways to look at that statement. That's the unfortunate part. There's two ways to look at it. Way number one, which is the argument of people on the other, not just people on the other side, but the devil's advocate's argument, I should say, is that after December 8th, there's no time for this thing to settle, so nobody is going to be buying it. So there's going to be nobody on the buy side. So that's your liquidity problem. That's argument number one. My argument is they said there may be liquidity problems, which means to me that once this reconciliation is done and all of the brokers are balanced, there's going to be no more buying and there's going to be a liquidity problem. So you're not going to be able to sell any more. It's essentially, to me, it's a musical chairs statement. The music is eventually going to stop and there's going to be a liquidity issue. So, for those of you that don't know, what they mean by that is it may not be easy to sell your shares. And I think that the only reason it would not have been easy to sell your shares on the 9th and the 12th is because everybody had balanced. So to me, what that statement says is after everything is all balanced out, there will be no more liquidity for you to sell your shares into.
Okay, next one that I found, which I'm kind of upset that I didn't catch this before. So in the FINRA FAQ number 3, has the MMTLP trading halt ended? We all know that when FINRA changed the language, we removed the word canceled and changed it with deleted. Is that correct? Okay, yeah. So in number 3, where they talk about the coding issue, to me it's very interesting that it says FINRA, basically they say FINRA deleted it, and then it later goes on to say, in the same response, in the same paragraph, the last sentence is, the MMTLP shares were canceled by the issuer on December 14th. If you look at all the TD Ameritrade screenshots, the information being put out by the brokerages was that it would be canceled on the 13th and distributed on the 14th. So does the simple fact that FINRA is so inconsistent with what they're saying in basically everything, it says with FINRA's deletion of the MMTLP symbol.
6490. 6490. I mean, to me, that's more of a. I think that's more of a tacit indicator that FINRA broke their own regulation. 6490.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And I think I think that there's it's amazing to me that there's all kinds of questions still surrounding what FINRA did and why they did it. I mean, I can appreciate, Gary Gensler being questioned by Congress, but this is one of the reasons why we really need a hearing on this, because FINRA has to be brought in to um, systemically break down why they did what they did, and it has to be clearly established whether or not FINRA acted outside of the scope of their authority, which my belief is that they did, for the reasons that you just stated, and for additional reasons related to Rule 6490.
All right, one last one. I want to jump back to what you were saying about if, unless someone hacked John Berta's emails, blah, 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 blah. Think about this. Considering that it's fairly obvious now that it was a hostile takeover on MetaMaterials, and the company itself, with the new board members, seemingly settles outside of court for $1 million. And with no other,
The time is 11
damaging
p.m.
effects from the SEC, is it possible that Meta gave up all of George Palikaris's emails? Obviously, it would be company server, blah, 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 blah. There would obviously be communication between John Berta and George Palikaris.
I wouldn't speculate. On that. Obviously, in this country, we have rules. We have constitutional rights dealing with protections against self-incrimination. So it would appear that somebody in there threw somebody else under the bus, and it may have been a part of MetaMaterials. What I think is interesting is that this complaint was lodged. This complaint was launched on the same date that the settlement with MetaMaterials was essentially ratified by the SEC. So that could be an indicator that, as part of MetaMaterials' agreement with the SEC, they supplied access to the emails. It's possible.
That's what I was thinking. You're a good man, Charlie Brown.
I'm a few inches taller than Charlie Brown, which means I'm 5 inches taller than Gasparino. Next, I'm gonna go to. We're gonna go to Lee G and then Doku. Lee.
Yeah, I'm
Lee.
here. I'm here. I dropped the phone. Hey, I got a question for you. This is
Sir.
This is this is what I think, but do you honestly think that Congress or our representative gave the orders to SEC to do what they did?
No, because the Wells notices were filed back in July, and our first true breakthrough was right around. I think the original Wells notice was filed in not retaliation, but kind of in response to the beginnings of our congressional outreach. And I think that it seems to me that investigation went at a very slow pace. And it's interesting what Pinstripe just brought up. Until the new board was until Metamaterials had a new board, it seems like that probably helped speed things up. But I don't think that a congressional representative, told the SEC this is what you have to do now. No.
Did MMAT pay a fine already to this Wells notice?
It says here that the fine is to be paid. Hold on. The fine is to be paid $250,000 within 30 days of today, $250,000 within 120 days, $250,000 within 210 days, and the rest within 300 days.
So if they paid their debts, so why are they going back to this?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they already made arrangements to pay the debt for the well notice. I guess to clear it.
That's as it relates. That's as it relates strictly to Metamaterials as a party. It does not encapsulate John Berta or George Palacaris.
Oh, okay. So that's a totally separate deal.
Well, no, it's not that. The Wells notice charged all three parties. As it relates to Metamaterials as a party, they've entered into this settlement agreement to pay a civil penalty not in excess of $1 million. And it says here, based upon its agreement to cooperate in a commission investigation and related enforcement action. So that also answers Pinstripe's question with a resounding yes. I do think that Metamaterials cooperation with the commission is what essentially what Berta and Palacaris's complaints are all centered around.
All right. I mean, I just threw it out there because it just popped up, but
that's paragraph D on page 15 of the order that was filed today. So that's paragraph 15, page 15, paragraph D.
I appreciate it, Drew. I love your space, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I have something that I want to say, but I'm saving it towards the end. Mr. Doku, what's up?
Hey, Drew, how you doing?
I'm okay, sir. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Thank you for the mic.
I'm gonna. Can I guess?
Go ahead, guess away.
You don't give a fuck about anything that this order says. You want a fucking share count, and you want your fucking 1-for-1 exchange or a fucking reconciliation. Am I getting warm?
Then 90% correct.
There you go.
Although I do have a few things that I am quite curious about. Well, one thing in particular, but I do want to touch on one thing you guys were briefly talking about in regards to liquidity issues. The other possible scenario is any individual or entities that would have been required to cover their positions in a closed position only scenario did not have enough cash on hand or enough liquid assets to cover those positions within the allotted time frame. And if what we believe we know about overseas market trading to be true, that very well could have been the issue that they brought to the regulators to say, hey, look, you need to put a U3 halt in place on this because it is a threat to market stability, because we are over leveraged and we are now technically illiquid, and the larger market implications warrant a U3 halt. If I was in that position, if I was short and I was essentially illiquid and I was trying to appeal to regulators, that's the argument I would make. And to be fair, right or wrong, wrong or right, if you made that argument to a regulator, that regulator's probably going to listen to you, and they'd probably rubber stamp that U3 halt just based upon that one argument alone.
That is also a plausible explanation for the liquidity issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's what happened, but it really wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the reasoning or rationale as to why the U3 halt was put in place. I mean, it would actually make sense.
Given what Curtis has come out with, given the the members on the UPC committee, I don't think that's implausible.
It's just something I wanted to throw out there for everyone to consider. I'm not saying that's what happened. It's just something that I thought should be put out there in the ether for people to consider. But the one thing that really has been boggling my mind ever since I saw this, why would you, if you're going to go after Barta and Palacaris for market manipulation, why would you bring up the Series A preferred share? Yeah, the Series A preferred share that was supposed to be a placeholder for Torchlight shareholders that never should have traded on the OTC market, but for some reason was allowed to trade. And we can go all the way back to Barta on Charles Payne's show saying this was never allowed to trade. FINRA did not contact Barta. This was never given company approval. Why would you bring that up? That to me makes absolutely no sense, especially if you have the potential of going to discovery in regards to the Series A preferred share, which then later subsequently became MMTLP. Well, knowing what you know.
Yeah, the allegation is that they concocted the entire Series A preferred share series of events strictly as a method to manipulate the market, and
but then you would essentially have
their
to,
allegation.
But then you would essentially have to make the argument that Palacaris and Barta wanted MMTLP to trade on the OTC market in order to manipulate the underlying price of the asset, when I have not seen Palacaris or Barta say that they ever intended or wanted this thing to trade in the first place.
But what they're saying is that they manipulated the price of Torchlight and subsequently what would then become MMAT, that they manipulated the price of Torchlight by structuring this in a way that would leave shorts forced to be squeezed.
But then you would have to make the argument that any company that goes through a merger that then also subsequently says that, hey, your shares in company A are going to be placeholders that are not intended to trade and will result in a cash dividend upon the sale of the assets,
yes,
is also fraudulent.
Right, that you're 50% right there. The other 50% of it is it's more akin to saying any company that goes through a merger and spins out the assets of the other company for whatever reason. I mean, the fact of the matter is Metamaterials used this merger strictly as a vehicle to become listed on a U.S. exchange. We all know
because they wanted the NASDAQ seat, and then when the
Yes.
assets get sold, you're going to get either maybe $1, maybe 20. We don't know. It's somewhere in that range, which is obviously a very wide range.
Or you will get one share into whatever company this asset gets spun out to.
And either way, though, to claim that is evidence of fraud or market manipulation, to me just seems very bizarre and wild. And the more I started thinking about this, an idea popped in my head, and I'd like to run it by you to see what you guys think. If I was, say, a registered representative, a FINRA regulator, or a member of the SEC, and I have become privy and very well acquainted with what this particular situation is, and I'm looking for a way to essentially wash my hands of the situation. By mentioning the Series A preferred share and what should have been a special cash dividend, which is now not, but we all know what happened there. This to me sounds like a booby trap. This sounds like a really subtle backdoor way of throwing people under the bus without actually throwing them under the bus. Because if this went to discovery, I highly doubt there is a judge out there that has, unless you paid them off, is going to look at this and say, so wait a second. You bought Torchlight, you got your Series A preferred share placeholder, keyword there, placeholder, that was intended to be a special cash dividend. That Series A preferred share being representative of your Torchlight shares that you had bought into previously that never should have traded. That's fraud because Barta and Palacaris wanted it to trade on the OTC market? Like, nah, dude, to me, that does not make sense. That sounds like a booby trap. That sounds like a landmine.
So my understanding of this is that John Berta and George Palacaris, Torchlight and Metamaterials consulted with outside experts and specialists on the most reasonable and prudent way to structure this spin out in a manner that would prevent Metamaterials from having to deal with potential issues that could be brought on by their ownership in an oil and gas asset. They consulted with specialists and experts, and to my understanding, at the behest of the SEC, they structured this spin out the way that they did. I think that the problem is, and listen, I call it like it is. I tell it like it is. I think that the problem is that the SEC now is in possession of communications that show that John Berta and George Palacaris were anticipating a squeeze in the price, and essentially, that the company offered shares into that squeeze. But that squeeze, first of all, would not have taken place had there not been an exorbitant short position in the company and possible market abuses. And second of all, that squeeze is simply a byproduct of the short sellers' inability to deliver the Series A preferred share. Now, whether or not George Palacaris and John Berta can be found guilty of wrongdoing because they anticipated this squeeze ahead of time, that's one thing. But I did not see a press release from Metamaterials. I did not see a press release from Torchlight that encouraged investors to buy this for a short squeeze. I didn't see any of that.
Drew, bear in mind, prior to the merger, yes, people were buying Torchlight. But after the merger with MMAT and Torchlight, and as you said, MMAT wanted the NASDAQ seat. Torchlight was being sold off. MMAT, as a semiconductor company, was not supposed to hold any oil and gas assets. Those were supposed to be spun out. And that's where the special cash dividend was going to come from, anywhere between $1 and $20 per share, which your Series A preferred share that was never intended to be traded would have essentially been your receipt for that special cash dividend. It was never supposed to trade. I never once saw Palacaris or Barta come out and say, you should buy MMTLP to squeeze the shorts or torch the shorts or anything like that. That was never the intent to begin with. We weren't even looking at having shares in a private oil and gas company. that only occurred after MMTLP started trading on the OTC market, which it was never supposed to do to begin with in the first place. So for them to name that as something as example of as an example of Palacaris and Barta engaging in market manipulation, to me just does not make sense. And unless you want to make the argument that the SEC just does not know what the underlying story behind this entire situation is, which I firmly believe they do, it sounds to me like this is a very roundabout way of throwing somebody under the bus so that this situation can get off their hands as quickly as possible, because otherwise you would never name that Series A preferred share. That would be a huge liability. I mean, I don't see any other reason or rationale behind it. Why would you do that? I mean, you're basically saying, hey, bring this in front of a judge and have the judge ask, well, why was this, placeholder asset allowed to trade on the OTC market in the first place? And why did FINRA approve it? And then after the fact, why didn't you guys do anything to rectify it? And now you're bringing it in front of me saying that, oh, George Palacaris and Barta are the ones responsible for this. And you don't think I'm going to look into FINRA or the SEC or the OTC market? Bro, that's insane. Like, that's crazy. There is not a chance in hell I would do that unless I'm trying to throw somebody under the bus. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. The only other explanation would be either A, you do not know what's going on with this asset, or B, you're incompetent. Maybe both. I don't know, man, but
maybe both.
To me, that sounds wild.
Yeah, it is wild. It is wild.
That's all I wanted to bring up, man. Thanks for the mic.
Done.
Appreciate it.
Well done. Thank you. Well done. We're going to go to Bishop and then Goro Grande.
Hey, Drew. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, Bishop. How are you, my
friend? Doing well, man. So obviously it's you just shared Gandalf's post. I would be curious to hear your thoughts on the fact that it seems as though history is repeating itself. Would you mind opining on that for a little bit?
Wait, what was that? One more time, please.
Yeah, I was just saying that I see that you posted Gandalf's post in the nest, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on how it seems that history is repeating itself more or less. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, and if you could opine on that for a bit.
Yeah, the SEC alleged that the overstock leadership intentionally orchestrated a short squeeze, and at the same time, misled the investing public. And I mean, it's a very similar situation to this. And Overstock, I'm pretty sure, I think Overstock beat that case. But I mean, I don't know exactly what you're asking me, though. But did Bishop go? I swear to God, I didn't kick him. I don't know why he left. But the Overstock case, like Gandalf says, has a lot in common with this situation. I mean, granted, no merger was involved or anything like that, but they said that Overstock intentionally went out of their way to orchestrate a short squeeze, misled investors, and I think they also said that the CEO sold a shitload of shares into that run. But to my knowledge, I mean, it does seem like pattern behavior. That's what it seems like. It seems like the SEC is just going after someone that was trying to call out abuses by entities on Wall Street. That's what it looks like. And, you know, you can say what you want to say. You can say what you want to say. But when it comes to the SEC and with FINRA, the fucking inmates are running the asylum. Period. They are. They're all former hedge funds, former brokerages, former prime brokerages that are on that board of governors. And in my opinion, you should be time barred from serving. Like, it's the equivalent of working at the FDA, and then you quit the FDA, and then a month later you end up working for one of these um, pharma companies. To me, you should be time barred from jumping back and forth between government or a regulatory position and then working for a company that is under the umbrella of that regulatory organization, and vice versa. Um, I think you should be barred from being an operations manager at a brokerage or a prime brokerage, and then immediately transitioning from that job into a job in the regulatory position where you can pull strings and do things that provide leeway to your prior places of employment. It just screams of conflict of interest. Um, but yeah, to go back to what Bishop said, I mean, I think Gandalf's post in the Nest pretty much speaks for itself. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna go to. Damn it! What happened to effect? I wanted to go to effect, and effect went bye bye. Um, effect went bye bye. Okay, let us go to Goro Grande.
Hi, Drew. Thank you for the space.
Hi. Thanks.
I'm going to roll this back a little. I just wanted to say, with respect to the statute of limitations, sort of for educational purposes, it's
Christ Almighty.
Huh?
Christ Almighty with the statute of limitations. Let's go.
I just want to say it's not about us having.
Hey, Drew, real quick. It was just super quick. You said.
Goro Grande is speaking, Pinstripe.
Oh, I didn't hear. Oh, I can't hear her speaking. My apologies.
All right, I'll drop you down and bring you back. Goro Grande, floor is yours.
Okay. With regards to statute of limitations, it's not enough to have a suspicion of fraud, as many of us have, right? You need something more material for that clock to start.
Guilty act plus intent.
But knowledge of the guilty act versus suspicion of a guilty act.
Yes.
Okay. Second, wouldn't it be likely that Berta or Palacaris or whatever would be filing something with the court that asks for preservation of the evidence? I'm just going through things people worry about sometimes. Oh, well, what if the information disappears? Or I don't know if that would include trading data.
I am not going to let the cat out of the bag on what I think Berta and or Palacaris's next move is, but I think I have a pretty good idea of what it is. And I think that what you're saying may fit in somewhere in there.
Okay. Third, I want to thank you for reminding us here and there that there are both direct and indirect effects of our being before Congress. I think that's helpful for us to keep in mind. And then lastly, someone was talking about capital markets, and it is the Financial Services Committee, their subcommittee on capital markets. The date is 6/27 Thursday, and it should be broadcast. Well, I saw the heading up on YouTube. That's it. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. Okay, so you mentioned that thing, and you know we all know that cousin Ari is going to be in front of the committee on Thursday. Here's the thing. I don't know about anybody else, but when it comes to me, and by the way, I refer to Cousin Ari. He's not really my cousin. It just became a hilarious thing that people ran with when I said that Ari was married to a Persian and all Persians are somehow related. Some group of goofballs took that to mean that Ari was my cousin. No. And just for the record, his wife is Muslim and I am Jewish, so there's no way we could be related, even though we're both Persian. But be that as it may, Cousin Ari's appearance in none of my meetings with Congress, none of them. And some people may criticize me for this, but I don't give a shit because I'm pretty sure we've all seen the fruits of a lot of the meetings that I've attended with representatives. In none of those meetings did I ever mention Ari Rubenstein. Why? Because that is circumstantial, that is conspiratorial, and I have nothing to back up that Ari Rubenstein. I have nothing to back that up aside from the knowledge that the first market makers to handle this, to facilitate trading of this security, were Canaccord and GTSX. So if I don't have anything that is solid, I'm not bringing it up. Not before members of Congress or their trusted staff. Now, subsequent to everything and all of the support that we've gotten, do I think that it's possible and plausible that somebody in our community has submitted some questions for the record, perhaps for Ari to be asked? Do I think it's possible that Ari could be asked questions about MMTLP? Yes. Do I think it's likely that he'll be asked questions there in session? No. Could I be wrong? 100%. But here's the thing. I don't ever go into one of these committee meetings. I don't ever go into watching one with expectations, because expectations are the precursor to disappointment. So I'm not expecting MMTLP to be brought up in that hearing. If it is, I'll be the first to jump for joy. But just as a general rule for your own emotional and mental benefit, if I could request one thing, it's don't go in there with don't go watching that meeting with an expectation to hear MMTLP brought up. If it does get brought up, great. But I don't want it to knock anybody into the dirt if it is not brought up. And I think that's, worth mentioning. I never brought up Ari Rubenstein in any of my meetings with Congress because I don't have anything. I don't have a smoking gun. I didn't have any. Like, there was a lot of things that I could point to. Like FINRA's conduct, I can point to that. And I can say that's some shady shit right there. And you can't overcome that argument. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, you cannot overcome that what FINRA did was shady. Even fucking Charlie Gasparino himself had to admit to that. That FINRA acted murky were the words that he used. So that I can point to. I can point to Dave Lauer, who is a member of a FINRA advisory board. I can point to Dave Lauer's statements calling for the need for radical transparency and a share audit. I can point to that and I can say, here, look at that. I can't point to anything tied to Ari Rubenstein. I can't. Because it's circumstantial at best. and that's not how we were able to produce letters on those meetings that I've sat in, or signatures. In those meetings that I did with Chris Rose, both, on the Fab 15 letter and on the 74. Uh, you don't win those arguments with circumstantial evidence. You win by being able to point at something and say, here, look at this. This is backed by a citation. This is backed by a reference. Yes.
Daddy.
Yes.
Tomorrow I have two play dates.
Oh my. Okay. Well, we heard that. Anthony Acid, go ahead.
I want to hear more about the play dates. That's funny. That was cute.
Yeah. Who are the play dates
That was
with?
cute.
Oh, Alice and with a bunch of other kids, Anthony.
Oh, very nice. Have fun. I just stopped by to say hello, and I heard Overstock. I mean, there was another person that was involved in that, right? Who was that? Wasn't there someone else that was involved in the Overstock thing? Hello? Did I lose everybody?
Hold on, you keep talking.
No, it was a question. I know there was another person that was involved helping that Overstock thing, wasn't there? Anyone?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Wasn't there someone else involved with that? Was that Patrick Byrne thing or no?
Yeah, Patrick Byrne was, I think, the CEO at the time.
Right. And wasn't there someone else that we know that was involved in getting that across the line? Or no? Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. Somebody else talk. I need to do this real fast. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
I knew
All
where
right.
you were going. I knew where you were going with that, Anthony. Since you're so
Oh, you
familiar
did?
with that, yeah, I knew where you were going with that. So since you're so familiar with the Overstock thing, I was actually going to bring this up, and maybe you can be the guy to answer it. So Drew mentioned earlier, he said, Overstock won that case. Yeah, here's the interesting part.
Right.
They did win that case with a judge in Colorado. Wait for it. Only to have that decision overturned by the same judge who made the decision. So yes, they won,
Right.
and then days later they were overturned. Am I factually correct on that?
I think so. I would have to double check that information, but there was someone else involved though. So yeah.
Yeah, our guy.
But
Our guy, your guy.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
guy. I knew where you were with that.
Exactly. So my point is that who knows? Maybe, tides may turn at some point. I don't know. Don't look at me for information.
Your point was we got the right guy
Just
on the case. I knew exactly where you were at.
That's it. That's all I'm saying. That's the only thing I'm saying. That's public knowledge, so I can't get in trouble for that. So that was it. That was my 2 cents for the night. But I'm loving the conversation. I'll listen. I'm in the background here just listening to see
Very, very, very important breaking news that I just the 2 play dates tomorrow. Sorry about that.
That's all right. We went through it. Me and Pinstripe. We got it. He knew where I was going.
All right.
All right.
I'm glad to
Go
hear
ahead.
that.
Yeah,
Now my
I know you're
fatherly duties are done. And sorry about that,
You're
guys.
back in pocket.
Yeah, I'm back now. Okay, so next I'm going to hands. I don't see any hands except for the bird lady. So I'm going to bird lady.
Hello, speak. And I know you gotta defer to the bird lady. Nobody else wants to speak. It occurred to me, like a little bit ago, what if you wake up tomorrow? You're talking about Ari Rubenstein, right? It occurred to me, what if we wake up tomorrow? And this is not at this point, it's not out of the realm of possibilities with what we've been through. You wake up tomorrow, and all of a sudden his name is Ari Rubenstein. And you're like, no, it's Ari Rubenstein. I could have swore it's Ari Rubenstein. And you have to, like,
Are you
rifle.
doing a
Yes,
Berenstain
yes,
Bears
the
deal?
Mandela. See, the Berenstain Bears was like, there was the first set of VHS tapes, I guess, that were Bernstein Bears, but all the books were Bernstein. And so it depends, if you watch the VHS tapes or not. But yeah, it's the R. Rubenstein, R. Rubenstein. And it's like, oh no. Like, all of a sudden.
Oh, I get it now. You're talking about Johnny Tobacco.
Oh, you woke up. You woke up.
Anthony was talking about Johnny Tobacco.
Wow,
Yes.
you were wait. It's all right. I got Pinstripe here. He got it. He got my drift right away.
My bad. I was busy getting
right.
a lesson on what I have to do tomorrow.
Big thing you missed there. I'm surprised at you. But
Oh,
okay.
it's a big day tomorrow.
Yeah.
She just busted in here. Yeah. But Bird Lady, the Mandela effect is real.
Definitely Mandela effect is real.
I want to know what universe you
real.
come from then. Like, did you come from the Bernstein Bears or the Bernstein Bears universe?
I came from the Berenstain Bears universe. Yeah. And next we're gonna go to Liquid.
Yo, hey you guys. Hey,
Liquid.
I thought Dooku.
I swear to God, if this is a Mandela thing, we're moving on.
No, I'm not. I don't even know what that is.
Liquid.
I'm here.
Is Liquid talking? God damn it!
Oh shit!
Somebody help me out. Is Liquid talking?
Yes,
I'm
he
here.
is talking.
Yes.
Shit. Hold on. I'll be right
Sorry,
back.
man.
Liquid, you could probably still talk.
Okay. Anyway, I thought what Dooku had to say was actually pretty awesome and pretty insightful. And you know, in the vein, Drew, I'm just kind of marching along because I know you always want me to move along, but
I'm back.
I was commenting on, kind of what Dooku had brought up here. In light of the fact, it sounds like we're all under the agreement that Meta has turned over probably email or email correspondence between Berta and Dr. P. Is it possible, Drew? And I'm just speculating here into the breeze. I hope that's okay. But there's been whiffs in the whole Voltron and all the bullshit that we've heard forever that these guys wanted it to be tradable. If they have emails where, let's say, and again, I'm positing here, I'm not saying anything is factual. I'm just kind of guessing at the sequence of events. When Meta was forced to trade, when Meta became tradable, whatever, when our dividends became tradable. I mean, obviously there was going to be correspondence between Berta and George. So, I mean, is it possible that they take emails out of context here and try to say that these guys made it or were involved with making the asset tradable? Because go ahead.
Okay. That's a good point to bring up. And the short answer to that is I don't think so. You try to take messages out of context. That's why you have that's why the plaintiff gets a chance to state their case and the defendant gets a chance to rebut them. So, they can try and frame it that way. But, I think if they take anything out of context, all the defense has to do is put it back into the proper context. And that pretty much craps on the credibility of the plaintiff. But here's what's really interesting. When was it that we first received news of metamaterials offering to enter into this settlement with the SEC? When was that? Pinstripe, do you know? Or Goro Grande, do you know?
I think you were right earlier that the timeline is very, very close to the dismissal of George Palacari.
Yeah. And what was that? Back in when was Polycaris dismissed? Back in January, something like that. When was that?
I thought it was September of 2023 or October of
Oh, okay. There you go.
2023.
Yeah. So what's interesting, I mean, basically what that means is they filed that Wells notice without having jack shit on the company. They filed that Wells notice without, because their entire complaint basically arises from conduct that they discovered via the emails, via the conversations that were being had outside. I will say this, outside of Polycaris's, recorded conversation with the Italians and Polycaris's, torch the shorts tweet. I mean, to me, it looks like the bulk of their complaint, the majority of their complaint, stems from metamaterials cooperation, which I think is interesting because they were using this quote unquote investigation as a reason to not have to answer any questions. Meanwhile, their investigation didn't have really any meat or potatoes to it until Meta cooperated. It seems, because it says here that the SEC basically allowed Meta the $1 million settlement if they agreed to roll on Berta and Polycaris. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
But Drew, real quick, and just humor me this: if they, like, we all know the dividend, all of a sudden we woke up and the fucking dividend was trading. So I would imagine that there ought to be some real interesting emails back and forth between the two CEOs, and I would imagine that some of the emails kind of go along the vein of, you know what, fuck them, let it trade, because they're going to get squeezed to death.
I think the emails probably say, I think the emails are probably questioning, because metamaterials did not acknowledge the authenticity of MMTLP really in any way, shape, or form until they effectuated the spin out. Like they did not. Somebody else put it in a really much more succinct way in terms of verbiage, and I'm a little tired. But metamaterials did not acknowledge the authenticity of MMTLP being equal to the Series A preferred shares until that spin out was effectuated. In fact, a major part of Voltron's argument, which was wrong, was that they said that if you buy MMTLP, you're not entitled to NextBridge, which we know is bullshit, because there's plenty of people that bought MMTLP that are now at AST. Yeah. Right. So what I think is interesting is that if I think that the SEC probably has the emails now from between Berta and Polycaris that probably say stuff along the lines of, how the fuck is this trading? Why is this trading? We did not allow this to trade. John Berta said, he reached out to OTC Markets. They said, you need to take this up with FINRA. He reached out to FINRA. FINRA said, you don't have standing to bring this up because you're no longer the CEO. And then, according to Berta, a case was made to Metamaterials that they needed to reach out to FINRA. And what they did is, not known, because George and Meta haven't exactly been as vocal as Berta was about that step in this series of events. So I'm assuming the SEC sees all of that now. So I think it's, but I don't think the SEC is going to bring forward anything that would absolve or exonerate Berta or Palikaris at this point. I don't see that happening. So I don't think we'll see those emails until either Berta or Palikaris makes them public. You good, Liquid? Liquid.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm kind of talking about like what I'm saying, Drew.
I get what you're talking about.
I mean, if there's bro emails like you and I talking off the air, where it's like, hey, they made the stock tradable, and then it's like, hey, you know what? Fuck them. Good. Watch, everybody's gonna buy shares, and
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
gonna
think-
buy 1 million shares myself.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I don't think they're going to find. I mean, Berta and Palikaris have both stated that this was never supposed to be made tradable. I don't think they're going to find emails that would lead anyone to believe that they intended for this to be tradable. I don't think that exists.
I was just bringing that up in line with what Doku was saying. Why invoke the Series A?
And now it's out there.
Yep. All right.
Now it's out there. Thank you. All right, we're gonna go to Pinstripe, and then I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and then one of you assholes is probably gonna grab a mic while I'm in the middle of saying what I want to say, so that you keep me here for another 20 minutes. But Pinstripe, you're up.
Yeah, so if you read the press release, now that we're on this, they have the emails kick. It's got to be because they actually have Berta quoted in there, and it's something along the lines of, "We have 2 days" or whatever. My issue with that is saying we have 2 days, take advantage of the squeeze. I mean, that could just be very well, hey man, we studied the patterns of when this happens, and it lasts for 2 days. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's any criminal intent behind that statement.
Again, companies take advantage of their stock prices running all the time to throw out offerings. They do it all the time. So the whole we've got 2 days. I mean, that's probably the exact same thing that GME board of directors was thinking when they threw up their offering. They threw up their offering in the middle of a run that was largely caused by Roaring Kitty's posts and Roaring Kitty's actions, and I don't see the SEC going after GameStop over that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like they could say, look, historically, that's what there is. I mean, to turn that into something of ill intent just seems like a reach.
Yeah.
A big reach.
Yep. Well, listen. This is the part where I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. I hope all of our. I want to thank everybody who grabbed the mic. I'm gonna kind of clear the speaker panel, and go for. Okay. Listen. I'm not gonna sit here. There's all kinds of narratives on. There's all kinds of narratives that how is Drew gonna spin this into being a positive? There is no spinning this. A Wells notice was issued a year ago, and the SEC has come forward with their claims against Palikaris and Berta, saying that this whole thing was that the way that they effectuated the merger was a scheme, and they put forward their claims, and those claims are going to be ruled on. I expect John Berta to fight. I expect George Palikaris. I don't know what to expect from George Palikaris, to be honest. I think he'll fight it. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, if there was not a short position that was damaging the price of the stock in the first place, then there would never have been a short squeeze. If that makes sense to anyone, I don't know. I did get some questions via DM that I want to answer. And one of the questions was regarding the financials. If the 10K and the quarterlies are filed in kosher and the S1 continues to be delayed, does NextBridge have a case for tortious interference or something similar against the SEC? I'm not an attorney. I'm not familiar with this, but my gut says yes. I don't think that the SEC can delay the S1 being effectuated just because they want to, or just because they know that the S1 being effectuated would help lead to a reconciliation. That would stink to high heaven, and I'm sure that NextBridge would have recourse against that. You got to remember, FINRA has immunity. The SEC does not. So we have to keep that, take that into consideration. Secondly, I did get a question from someone who said he doesn't think anyone has the balls to ask me pointed questions like the ones he was asking me. So I'm not afraid of pointed questions. So I'm going to pose these questions. And the main question was, what does an imbalance of open short positions matter to, and these are his words, a public company? First of all, NextBridge is not a public company. It is not a fully private company. NextBridge is weird. It's publicly held, I guess you could say, but it's not a publicly traded company. So it meets the definition of a public company in some ways, and it meets the definition of a private company in some ways. But the question of how does it affect the company if there is a naked short position? Well, first of all, there's actually a number of different ways, and I'm going to answer that. So, first of all, market perception and company reputation is very important. A company's reputation can suffer when it becomes publicly known that it's a target for abusive short selling. Companies need to attract new investors, new partners. They need to engage in business with prospective new, I don't want to say customers, but I want to say it's not good for their reputation, number one. Number two, and this is a big one, financial institutions like banks, investors, and even credit rating agencies, you can view the company as a higher risk due to a significant imbalance in the shares, if it is believed to exist or if it exists. If there is a significant short interest against a company, believe me, financial institutions and potential capital partners, they take note of that. So if the company needs to raise additional capital, it could either become more expensive or difficult to do so. And those potential investors may look for higher returns in light of the additional risk of all of that short interest. Obviously, there's corporate governance problems, management not knowing who their shareholders are, and not knowing if their books are balanced. That's a major distraction. And then you've got to focus on regulatory inquiries and legal actions instead of concentrating on the company's core business. Obviously, regulatory scrutiny, there's definitely increased regulatory scrutiny. If there was a reconciliation before the spinout was effectuated, I don't think that there would be all of this regulatory scrutiny. I don't think that NextBridge would have nearly had as much problems getting their S1 done. I do think that, I do think that the additional scrutiny is probably because of all of this. Now, here's the thing, and this is a big one. If a company suspects that they are a victim of abusive naked short selling and they take no action, if a company believes that there is a massive imbalance in their shares and they take no action, that is a breach of fiduciary responsibility. Greg McCabe has made it perfectly clear that he intends to aggressively pursue. I'm going to read from the press release, if you don't mind. Let me just pull that up. I have it on the timeline. I'm going to read this because I heard somebody who was hosting a space the other day say NextBridge never used the phrase aggressively pursue. And that is untrue. So I'm going to pull this up and just read from that. And again, this all just ties back into the point that, to allow something like this to stand and take no action, it's a potential breach of fiduciary responsibility. And here is the, whoops. Okay. Damn it. Pursue. Okay, it's not this press release then. NextBridge Hydrocarbons Incorporated. Here it is. Here it is. This is it. My bad. So, too many press releases. AGGRES. Okay. For its own part, NextBridge intends to aggressively explore options for delivering a potential liquidity solution for shareholders. In pursuit of innovative and dynamic strategies, the company has recently engaged John Tobacco and his consulting firm Token Team LLC. Members of Token Team will help NextBridge fully understand all facets and consequences of a potential listing on a blockchain trading platform. That's what it says. NextBridge intends to aggressively explore options for delivering a potential liquidity solution for shareholders. So I just wanted to put that out there for the space host that was saying that they never used that phrase. Indeed, they did. With all due respect to everyone involved, God knows I'm not looking for war. I'm not picking on nobody. I'm just telling you this is what was said. And I wanted to set the record straight on that. But going back to what I was saying, it does make a big difference. if there is naked shorts that exist. And it is what it is. Now, okay, I'm gonna say this again. You know, if if anybody out there wants to take credit for what happened today, and good for you. If it makes you feel better, if it makes you feel better about your life, good for you. I'm here to tell you that nothing in this complaint seems to have come from, you know, whistleblowers or anything like that. It seems that Metamaterials cooperated with the SEC, and it seems that I don't see how any of this stuff you could take credit for. But if you want to, then good for you. I hope you feel better about yourself. I don't think that you're going to be getting a whistleblower reward that's worth the buffalo shit on a nickel. And if you don't get a check cut to you, that means that you did nothing to result in this enforcement action being brought. It's just my 2 cents. The allegations that are being made are for John and George to defend. I'm not John's attorney. I'm not George's attorney. One could look at the totality of this situation and judge for themselves why they think this enforcement action is being brought. I'm not here to spin this into anything else other than to say, you know, I'm glad that this part is out because now they can't use the Wells notice to hide behind. Although I don't like that sentence at the end of the statement that they made, because I feel like they can hide behind that too. So that's kind of annoying. But this is what they've been hiding behind for a whole year. And this has a whole lot of nothing to do with MMTLP. Nothing. I also don't see, you know, listen, I know that some of you may not believe this or, you know, may think that otherwise about me. But I'm not interested in, you know, crapping all over people just to crap all over them. I've seen a lot of chatter that somehow, you know, Smokey turned on the company or whatever and cooperated. I mean, rumors of that. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I wish Smokey all the best wherever the hell he is. Don't know, haven't seen him around, and it is what it is. But I don't want people to attack anyone with pitchforks over this. And that includes, to be quite honest with you, that includes, and this is going to be unpopular. I don't want to hear like threats against anybody or any entity over this, and that includes the SEC and FINRA. John and George will defend themselves, and what's going to happen is what's going to happen. I think that they've opened. I think that they've kicked the hornet's nest. This is my opinion. I think that they've kicked the hornet's nest in allowing the guy that they've pissed off the most in this situation to have an avenue into discovery. I've also stated this already. I'm going to state it again because I'm kind of wrapping it up. I think that that discovery period is 6 to 8 months out. I'm going to invite Mr. Quattrone to take a mic, as I suspected someone was going to do in my close. You're the asshole of the day, Mike. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Andrew?
How you doing, man?
Just leaving the hospital, just getting off work.
God bless you, buddy.
But yeah, I caught a little bit of the space earlier, and my phone died, and it's been kind of slow at the hospital, which is a good thing. I don't have to go to a small hospital, so anyway, that's not busy me or is good. It means people ain't suffering, so that's a good thing. But anyway, my phone died, so I lost out on some of it. But you know, I called enforcement today, and they, I can promise you, don't like what I had to say. I went off. I went off on them. I told them I just let it all. I got 18 months hang out on a voicemail. To Mr. Grawwall or whatever is, however you pronounce his name. But anyway, it's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. John John didn't John and George didn't create none of this crap. And I can't wait. I just they got receipts. I guarantee you Berta's got receipts of stuff we don't even know, you don't even know, stuff that he's
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, let's assume for the sake of argument that they did. Let's assume for the sake of argument, just for fodder for argument, that everything in this complaint is 100% true. Let's assume that. How does that take away from the actions of the regulator, the market, and the brokerages leading up to December 9th? How does that explain how we are still here 18 months after the trading halt without a share count? How does that explain, or a share audit, or a broker audit, or whatever the hell these people want to call it? How does that explain the intentionally omissive responses that FINRA has given to Congress in light of their inquiries, where they only answered certain questions but chose to completely omit answers related to others?
Yeah. Well, like you said, they talk out of both ends of their ass. They approve an S1, but then they don't go along with what they approve. They forget about an OCC memo. They forget about all the stuff that they don't understand. They think we're just complete nincompoops, that we don't understand. 2 + 2 is 4. It's just
and everybody knows that I enjoy a good holing session. There is a reason. There is a very specific reason why I'm not poking more holes than the ones that. If you notice, I've only gone through Twitter and I've brought up points that poke holes at this. I'm not sitting here and poking holes at it myself for a very, very specific reason. And it's because I see a lot of problems with this, but I'm not going to help the SEC in preparing for in preparing for what I believe is going to be a response that fucking tears them to shreds from John Berta. I'm not going to help them with that.
Well, I'll say this. Just picture this. The criminals say, the reason we had to do the MMTLP thing is because of John Berta, George Palkaris' fraud. Can you hear that stupid shit coming out of that side?
No, I don't listen to them anymore. I swear to God, I just don't listen to them anymore.
No, I'm just saying the criminals. I mean, the actual people. But that would be the biggest damn mistake they ever made in their life if they ever did that. It's a discovery.
Yeah, you know what? There's also rumblings that the SEC brought this action in an attempt to allow John Berta discovery so that we could finally come to the truth. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's not true. All I know is they've allowed that avenue to discovery for John Berta, and I fully think that John Berta is going to fight this very aggressively and do what he can to get to discovery. I mean, listen, I expect there to be motions to dismiss. I'm not going to explain why. I expect other motions to come out from John Berta that I've hinted at, but I'm not going to say outright. I expect all of this, but make no mistake about it. I think that, those motions to dismiss, first of all, if you don't file, you have two opportunities to file a motion to dismiss. If you don't file the motion to dismiss, the court kind of views that as shady. So I don't want anyone to see, eventually when John Berta does file, because I'm sure they will, when John Berta does file a motion to dismiss, I don't want anyone to think that that's John Berta's way of trying to weasel out of getting into discovery because, oh, he's been, scamming us the entire time. No, it's because if you don't file that motion to dismiss, the court kind of looks at that and takes note of that and says, all right, and that's kind of shady. That means that, they're I don't know how to explain it, but it just looks shady if you don't file that motion to dismiss.
Well,
So,
if it goes to a jury,
I want,
if it goes to a jury,
yeah.
John is going to need you or Curtis to be testifying to explain it so the jury can understand it in our terms. So that would be the
Okay,
smart
so
thing.
now we're really getting down a rabbit hole. I can tell you that I can understand the principle behind what you're saying is that it's important for the jury to understand the perspective of this from a retail investor's point of view in light of the allegations that are being made. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to do it because I wasn't a Torchlight investor. Curtis, I think, was. So, and I'm sure. Listen, I don't. That's a rabbit hole
Well,
hypothetical.
I know, Andrew. But the thing is, 12 jurors. You know how hard it is to explain it. To get how many months did it take us to make Congress to really understand on all these offices? My God, can you imagine 12 average Americans that really are not keen on the stock market trying to have to? This is a complex. This could be a complex deal, and someone's going to have to kind of spread the information out so they can take it all in and understand the deal. Your jury or whatever, you're going to have
So, and
someone
I want to
testify
point
as an
out,
expert.
I
So
also saw some people saying, "Oh, this is." Hold on, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but you're breaking up real bad, Mike. You were breaking up real bad. This is another thing that's important. I think it's funny when people say things like, "Oh, this is going to be handled by a judge. There's no jury." You're an idiot. You're an idiot. On the top of the first page of the complaint being brought on from the SEC, it says jury trial demanded. You're an idiot if you say, oh, this is just going to be decided by a judge. There doesn't need to be a jury. You're a stupid person. It says on top in bold letters, jury trial demanded. And it also might as well say, you idiot. Because you're an idiot if you think that this is something that's just going to be handled by a judge in some form of administrative proceeding. No. The SEC is demanding a jury trial and all of the things that come along with a civil action. This is not a criminal complaint. I'm sorry, Miss Puzzled Raccoon. This is not and she's not the one that said there won't be a jury, but she said that this is a criminal thing and there is no discovery and they don't have the opportunity to file cross complaints and all that stuff. That's not true. This is a civil action taking place in a civil court. And as of right now, that civil court is the United States District Court in the Southern District of New York. a jury trial is being requested, and all of the facets and components that go along with a jury trial is what is going to take place here. You are not well versed in how the SEC brings enforcement actions if you say otherwise. And a lot of these quote unquote experts don't know what they're talking about. I want to address one thing. You know, Gasparino said something funny, and he also deleted a tweet immediately after he said it. I don't know if this was it. Oh, yeah, it was. Here. Haha. He said, do you think Drew will address... He deleted his post, though. Do you think Drew will address this from the SEC? The complaint alleges that Berta and Polakaris told certain investors and consultants and hinted via social media that the dividend would force short sellers to exit their positions. And the rest of the tweet is cut off. But he basically, what he was saying was, will I address that the SEC is saying that Berta and Polakaris wanted MMTLP to squeeze? Mr. Gasparino, the post, you were very wise to delete it. And I can still read the top of it. I can't read the rest of it because you deleted it, and I'm going to post it. But this post that you made only further demonstrated your lack of knowledge on the situation. You conflated this SEC complaint with MMTLP, which is not mentioned once in their complaint. They are alleging that the creation of the Series A pref, which had no ticker assigned to it, was created to run the price of Torch up going into the merger, not the price of MMT going up into the halt. Charles Gasparino knows nothing about this situation, and it is astounding to me that he is continuing to comment on it while being so recklessly uninformed. It's recklessly uninformed. I invited him into this space to come and discuss. He said he was coming. If the bird lady came, she came. He didn't show up. Charles Gasparino, plain and simple, is not a man of his word. It was more deflection to cover his insecurity and lack of confidence in himself. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. And that's the way it is. I had really left Charles Gasparino in the rearview mirror until he started picking on people like John Tobacco and Dennis Neal today. I'll say this about Dennis Neal. I don't always agree with his choice of who he has on his show, but God damn it, the guy is at least trying to create awareness for us, and for that, I'm thankful. I'm going to wrap up here, and I want to wrap up by saying this. You've all been here for long enough to know exactly what this is that we're looking at today. I can tell you that the support that John has gotten, I can tell you he appreciates it. I can say that. I don't talk to George, but I'm sure George appreciates the support that he's gotten also. Again, I look at this and I know exactly what I'm looking at here. And it seems very apparent to me that the SEC is simply going to try and point at this and show it to Congress and say, here, look. The SEC is going to try and point at this and show it to, media and say, here, look. when in reality it does nothing to address the meat and potatoes of why we've all been gathered here on Spaces for 18 months. They have not addressed it. They say that they're holding a separate investigation into MMTLP. If the SEC has even one shred of legitimacy as a regulatory authority, then that investigation will include a conclusive, definitive, legitimate, broker by broker audit. We already know that there is a problem. Congress will not be deterred by what was filed today. And CC mentioned it straight from Pete Sessions' office, and I can mention it as well. I intentionally don't come out and mention the names of the congressional representatives that I have relationships with, because I know there's people on the other side that are just foaming at the mouth to run to those offices. I'm not going to open that door for you. You're going to have to earn it the hard way, the way we did. And I don't know about you all, but I will continue fighting in the manner which I have been fighting alongside everyone who wants to continue to fight. I don't think this deterred anyone. I look at this and I look at our community's response today, and to be honest with you, I'm overwhelmed with how it has seemingly galvanized all of us. This did not seemingly harm our spirits. This only seemingly made our outrage grow. And there's a trick to that. Anger can work for you, outrage can work for you, or it can work against you. It works against you if you come out and you make threats and you say, I'm going to do this and that to this person or that person. It works against you. It works against all of us. Anger and outrage work for you when you can channel that into an energy that you can put towards something that's productive. Whether it's phone calls to Congress, phone calls to your attorney general, phone calls to media, phone calls to your favorite podcasters, emails, outreach. Judging from the response I saw from this community today, feels like this is only going to propel us forward. No spin, just telling it like it is. I'm confident that John is going to fight this, and what's going to happen is what's going to happen. The defendants in this case are John Berta and George Palikaris. John Berta and George Palikaris are responsible for defending John Berta and George Palikaris. The MMTLP community is not a defendant. MMTLP shareholders, what are now supposed to be NextBridge Hydrocarbons shareholders, we are not a defendant. We did nothing wrong. And we don't have to defend ourselves against this. So don't think for one split second that this is going to hurt us in our pursuit of answers and ultimately a reconciliation. And I can tell you with confidence that I don't think John Berta or George feel that this should, could, or will slow us down. I don't think it will. And with that, You know, I switched offices and I remodeled my office. And in my old office, I had a lot of quotes all over the wall. And I took a lot of them down. They're all in a box. And I used to, you know, make these closing speeches and would include one of those quotes. I don't have them around me. I got to go dig them out. But I did use one. I did use one last night that was from Edmund Spencer. And it said, and he that strives to touch the stars oft stumbles at a straw. This will not be that fucking straw. I keep fighting. I keep going forward. And I'm sure I'll see you all right back doing what we do, if not harder. I appreciate every single one of you. And I appreciate everybody who grabbed the mic tonight. I thought it was a good conversation. I enjoyed it very much. Keeping in custom with how I close the space, I'm going to close this one with a prayer. I say that prayer to a higher power of my own understanding, and I refer to that higher power as God. It does not matter if you refer to your higher power as God, Jesus, Moses, Allah, the universe, or Joe Pesci. Whoever your higher power is, I say this prayer in the name of your higher power as well as my own, and the prayers are as follows. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God, thank you for everything you've given us. Thank you for everything you've kept away from us. Thank you for granting us our health and granting health to our loved ones. We pray that you continue to grant us our health, show us the right way in life and the right way to become closer with God, and bless us with the wisdom to choose the correct path that you place before us. God, we pray that you watch over our families, keep everybody healthy, safe, and happy, and bless us with the knowledge, wisdom, and power to provide the best kind of lives possible for ourselves as you fill our homes with your love and presence at all times, and remove from us the bondages of self, that we may better serve thy will. May it be your will, God, that the people of this community gather together in celebration very, very soon. And I believe you will. As you bring us all one step closer to God, one step closer to each other, and one step closer to our dreams. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say one more prayer. God, guard my tongue from evil, and guard my lips from speaking deceitfully. Let our souls be silent to those who curse us, and let our souls be as dust to all of them. Open our hearts to your commandments, and as for all those who plot evil against us, hasten to annul their counsel and frustrate their design. Let them be as chaff before the wind, and let your angels thrust them away, that we may all be delivered. Help us with your right hand and answer us. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Ladies and gentlemen, the fight goes on. What we saw today, that's not our fight. That's John's fight and George's fight. I support both of them, and I'm sure we're going to see them defend this thing, and I hope to see John take this thing all the way to discovery. But to be quite frank, I think this is going to be resolved long before that happens. It's just my opinion. Could be right, could be wrong. And with that, wherever you all come and wherever you all go, I pray that you be delivered safely in God's hands. I think I'm going to open another space after this one, but I just want this recording to be intact. And maybe I'll just open a hangout space. So come along, hang out. Or don't. I don't know how long it's going to be open, but I feel like hanging out. So let's do that. Let's do that. Jack Smitty. Never mind. I'm going to open a space. Hope everybody has a great night, restful night's sleep. Listen, come back tomorrow. Keep calling Congress. Keep reaching out. Keep pushing. Keep fighting. This is not my problem, not my fight. This does nothing to address MMTLP or the imbalance. We're going to find what that imbalance is. And I know it's something because these motherfuckers have been hiding it for 18 months. So the fight goes on tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. God bless. Good night.